Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Tactiles. This is Nadia Saleem, Director Human Resources at Computan. If you follow us on social media, you know what it's about. And if not, I got you. This is a video chat show where we bring together experts and influencers from Computan team to discuss a wide range of topics that matter to developers, marketers, and tech lovers. So, are you ready for today's behind the scenes peek? As our operations maestro takes center stage in today's episode, unveiling the daily hustle of an operations manager in a dev shop, get the scoop on why time logging in a developer's is a developer's secret weapon, and gain exclusive insights into fine-tuning development for marketers. Let's welcome Nicolas Milanowski. Hello, Nick.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Nadia. Thanks for having me today.
It's a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much for giving us your time. So, before we start the show, let's start with a little background with your story of Computan and your role as operations manager at a dev shop.
So I started in Computan about 5 years ago,
Hmm.
and I remember that Sajil, company owner, he reached out to me over Upwork at the time, and he was offering me a project manager position. I was a project manager back then,
Hmm.
and we had a conversation at some point, and at the time, we couldn't make it work for various reasons. I still had my other job I was happy with, but then we spoke again a year later, and we managed to 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 come to terms, I guess. And he offered me the position of operations manager. So at my previous company, I was project manager, but I was also operations manager, in charge of accounting and QC and a bit of everything because it was a
Yeah.
startup company. It was a small
Hmm.
dev shop, and I was a part owner, so I was doing a little bit of everything. The part that I really liked doing most of all was operations. So
Uh-huh.
Sajid knew this, and he eventually came to offer me the position of operations manager, which was a position that he was also looking for. So I happily accepted and
Hmm.
started working here in Computan. I remember back then the company was about maybe 20 persons strong, let's say, and today we're close to 100. Correct me if I'm wrong,
Yes.
Nadia. There,
Yes. Yes.
right? So the company has grown a lot since then, and it has been my pleasure working together with Sajil and the rest of the Computan team members, trying to uh, trying to have this growth be as organized as possible.
Indeed, that's a great journey, Nick. And let's start with what a typical day looks like for you as an operations manager in a dev shop.
It's hard to say because there isn't like a routine that I do. There are a couple of things that I do routinely, like assigning tickets. That is a uh, important part of my day is making sure that all the different teams are receiving the tasks that they need to work on. That is something I do routinely, on a daily basis. But the rest of it doesn't have like a regular flow, let's say, or a cycle, or a daily cycle. Mine is more of a monthly cycle. We have reports going out at the end of the month or
Yeah.
at the beginning of the month for the previous month every time. So part of my job is preparing those reports, making sure that the information is accurate, and handing them out to the clients. So the first week of the month is usually extremely busy for me because I have to be analyzing all the data that we had for the previous month, and that's usually how it goes. Then there's a lot of talking involved for me, talking to all the different teams, just ensuring that everything is running smoothly for the most part.
Hmm.
Um, we work on standardization, for instance. So I have meetings frequently with different project managers, members of the standardization team. We have a team that is dedicated to progressing in these particular areas. So we meet frequently with them. We bring in project managers, team leads, developers to make sure that everybody is aware of what is required of them, the processes, making sure that everything is running smoothly and everybody's up to speed. That is also a big part of our responsibility. There is timesheet development. Timesheet is a tool that we use internally, like a project
Yeah.
management tool.
Hmm.
So there's also that. There's the jumping on projects that are going sideways, seeing if there's anything that I can help on. But mostly, when something goes wrong, it my part of the job is trying to understand what exactly it was that went wrong, and making sure we take the necessary steps to avoid it in the future.
Right. And Nick, you mentioned about the daily reports, they're like monthly reports. So, in
Yes.
your experience, why do you emphasize the importance of developers logging their time? And how do you think this practice contributes to the overall efficiency and success of the development team?
That's a good one. Uh, because if you ask any developer in the world, I'm pretty sure that everybody will say that logging time is tedious and that they don't like to do it. Just to be kind, to put it nicely, they probably hate it a lot.
Yeah.
Uh, so the short answer is, I guess, that it gives us accurate information of what is going on in the company, and with this information, we can make better decisions. We understand what is going on. Uh, we can determine which areas need improvement, so it tells us where to focus our attention, where to work on. Uh, yeah, basically where to focus our efforts to become better and more efficient. That is why time logging is important. That is a very, very short answer.
Right. So, Nick, you also raised a really good point of standardization. So, let's discuss streamlining the development processes for marketers and agencies. So, what
Okay.
processes should marketers and agencies implement to streamline the development process?
In order to streamline the
Mhm.
relationship between an agency and ourselves, I think the most important thing is to trust in our expertise, right? So the agency is hiring us for our expertise in development, and
Yeah.
that is very important to take into account, I think, because many times it happens that a client will come to us and they say, we need this done by a certain date. So we know, for instance, that that is going to be very hard to achieve,
Mhm.
and we will tell that to the client. We will perform, a quote, an estimate on a job, and we will give you as accurate a timeline as we consider. We will tell the client, in all honesty, this is going to be very hard to achieve. Very hard to achieve means that if everything goes perfectly well,
Mhm.
then we will make it. We will make that deadline. If anything goes wrong, anything goes sideways, anybody falls ill, there's a the assets are not provided in time by the client. Whatever it is, somebody has a power shortage anywhere in the world, then things are going to be slightly delayed. So, well, you know what Murphy's law, right? If anything can happen wrong, it
Yeah.
probably will happen. Something like that, something along those lines. What I
Mhm.
mean to say is that when we come with an argument like this, and I tell you this is going to be very hard to achieve, then the client needs to understand that it is going to be very hard to achieve. And if we say downright this is impossible, then trust us, it is impossible. What I think is very important for everybody to take into account is that it is in our best interest as well to deliver projects as quickly as possible. We want to complete the task so that we get paid, of course, and the client in turn wants the same. So there's no reason why we would delay a project in that way. Then the other very important thing for us is, you talked about processes, and I think one very important thing that a client can do is using a project management tool. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna vouch for anyone in particular. I'm just saying, project management tools are good because they help us keep ourselves organized,
Yeah.
um, with detailed requirements, assigning timelines, gathering of assets, and even when a client is not perfectly aware or understands how to deliver the requirements to us, we can help the client draft those requirements accurately. We make our best efforts. It's in all our interest to count with accurate requirements.
Nick, what are two, three ways you have helped to make the dev process more efficient? What were the challenges you faced, or how were they overcome?
I'm going to say that one of the biggest things, and maybe we've implemented in Computan is the QC team. So when I came into Computan, we didn't have a QC team. That is maybe one of the biggest things that we managed to implement here way back. We've had a QC
Right.
team now for many years. Uh, the big thing about QC, I think, is that it is helpful for everyone, not just ourselves, but
Yeah.
also for the client. It saves time for everybody. So if we are able to catch the bugs and the issues before they reach the client, then we are saving the client time. We are
Absolutely.
saving the developers time by not having them work on things that their client is requesting. The if lots of issues get to the client, then that creates tension in the relationship. So that is also something that we avoid by having a QC team, by performing accurate quality control and quality assurance. I'd say that is one of the biggest things that we managed to implement to make the developers' lives easier. It's all about that. Standardization is a very broad topic, but as I was saying a little bit earlier, it's all about making the lives of the people that are working the company a little bit easier. So when we come with standardization, and from the operations side, we ask people to do things a little bit differently. Usually that is met with resistance because everybody's used to doing things the way that they do. But talking about trust again, you need to trust the operations team when we say this is in your best interest. This is going to make things run smoothly. Maybe at the beginning it won't. Maybe it will take a little bit more time at the beginning, but hopefully, or ideally, this will save time in the future. So, for instance, Nadia, you have suffered me as well, I guess, on some occasions. Um, for instance, I might say to the HR team, because it's not only about the developers, operations, we interact with HR, with QC, with developers, with even with sales, even if that area is more under the command of Sajil. Um, I would say to you, let's keep this sort of communication over email. Let's have this documented.
Yeah.
Let's make
Yeah.
sure the instructions are clear.
Yeah.
There's a case a couple of days ago, right? So I might get on your nerves, but you need to know that I'm doing that for the benefit of everybody. If a person has
Absolutely.
instructions clear and
Yeah.
the documentation is readily available for everybody,
True.
they will probably have less questions, when the
Yeah.
time comes for them to perform the task. So eventually, that would save time for you. It would save time for me as well, probably, because some persons would mistakenly come to me for help, and then I would have to go
Yeah.
to you. So now we're talking about three
Yeah.
persons that have, wasted
Absolutely.
some time. Not It's not catastrophic, but ideally, we solve those situations by doing something as simple as sticking to a process.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of what standardization is about. I guess the other main thing that we have achieved in the company is capturing accurate data. That one took a long time. We weren't very good at capturing data. Of course, you don't need that information when you're a small dev shop, but
Yeah.
as things tend to grow, and
Mm.
there's a lot of expansion going on. There's different teams working on different things. You need to
True.
make very clear who is working on what and whose responsibility certain things are. As I said before, in my previous company, I would do a little bit of everything because I was part owner, because it was a very small dev shop, a dozen people at most. When we're talking about 100 people, and this is also part of the standardization process, we need to be very clear on who is supposed to do what.
Yeah.
So if we're capturing accurate data in regards to how much time we're investing on doing this or that, we can become better in the future at doing those things because we understand how much time we're investing into certain things,
Yeah.
and we will know if we are investing too much time or if our efforts would be better focused elsewhere, for instance. I'm being very broad, but there's there's lots of moving pieces involved. As I said, we work with all the different departments, so I'd rather keep it that way. We we try to do what's best for everybody.
Yeah. Okay, so Nick, you're one of the suggested or recommended ways and which you implemented was like QC department. So you
Yeah,
also work very closely with the QC department. So I want
yeah.
to know, how does testing vary from front end jobs and back end jobs?
Okay, that is a sort of technical question, but I'll do my best to reply in terms that everybody can understand. So
Sure.
front end and back end differ in the way that front end, let's say, is a visual aspect of development, and back end is whatever goes on behind the curtains. So let's say that you have a form on a website, right, which which captures some data. So the front end aspect of it is how it looks. If the colors are right, if the proportions, the fonts, the sizes and everything, that would be the front end. And the back end is the information that is being stored in a database. And the testing for both of them. On the one side, you have the front end testing, which involves making sure that the visual aspects are in line with the requirements from the client. That is what the QA engineer will ensure. And they will also test usability and functionality. So we try to take it a step back and not wait until the end of the project to send things to QC. In some cases, with some clients, we will even test the designs that are provided to us to make sure that there are no inconsistencies or, let's say, functionality issues. Uh, some clients have found this very helpful, even. So we try to involve QA from the very beginning. We test the designs, we make sure that they are consistent, that everything is in line and in order, and then we make sure that whatever is developed, the code, what appears on the website, is in line with those requirements that the client has sent our way. As for the backend testing, I'm going to say it's all about the data. It's ensuring that the data remains consistent and accurate throughout various operations. Say like updates or inserts or deletes. What happens when data is again updated, inserted, or deleted? We have to make sure that those operations are happening accurately or accordingly in the database. Um, it's verifying that the data is stored correctly in the database. Usually we're talking about integrations that we're doing, sending data from one side to the other. We need to ensure that the data is arriving correctly
Yeah.
from one side to the other again. And then there's also things like evaluating the performance of the database and the queries and operations. If you run a query, let's say, if you search for something on a system and that thing takes 5 minutes to provide the results, then there is probably something that can be improved along the way. You know what I mean? That's what backend testing is all about. And finally, I'd say handling how the system handles the errors. So a big thing about backend testing is also making sure that the database or the system handles the error, providing meaningful error messages, for instance, that will make it easier for the developers to fix those errors in the future. If they
Right,
have
right.
relevant information, the debugging will be easier eventually.
So, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, we conclude today's episode with a huge thanks to our operations manager Nicolas Milan for giving us a glimpse into the magic behind the scenes. Thank you so much, Nick, for joining us today.
It has been my pleasure.
Stay tuned for more tech tales in our upcoming episode. Until then, take care, everybody.